Hello and welcome back to Speed Demon Painting. Today we are doing an updated video about how to build a force in Dystopian Wars to help new players out who find this particular part of the game confusing. Now, in order to showcase how to build a particular force, I am using my own Imperium fleet, and it shows you how you can do a bit of force planning as well and think about what you want to buy and what you want to build. Speaking of, I do quite a few of these guides to help out new players in this game, so if you're interested in that, make sure you give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for future updates. Now, how are forces built? Forces are made up of one or more battle fleets, and those are usually led by a flagship unit. Every faction will have a general faction fleet. It provides no bonus, except if it's your second battle fleet, and it has a very large freedom of what you can select. You don't have to worry about nations, you don't have to worry about keywords and traits. It's quite simple and very forgiving, but you can only ever select one unit once. Remember though that your force can be made up of multiple battle fleets. If you want to have twice the same unit using this system, you are going to have to get two different battle fleets, each containing that one particular unit you wanted to field twice. Next to the generic faction fleets, you also have a bunch of themed battle fleets that they can use. These are way more restricted in what they can use, because you do have to mind the different traits of all of the units you are selecting, and they sometimes allow you to include a same unit multiple times, in which case it mentions it specifically. I've included two pictures of one such generic fleet from the Imperium. As you can see, this is the symbol for the flagship unit, and you must include one. The only thing is that the flagship needs to have the Imperium trait. Guess what? They all have the Imperium trait. The other thing you must include is at least one, and this is the symbol for a surface unit, and those surface units only need to have the Imperium trait. It doesn't matter if they are from, for instance, the Teutonic Order, the Prussian fleet, the Scandinavian fleet, they will all have the Imperium trait. And as you can see, you can include up to one submerged unit, you can have up to one skimming unit, and you can have up to one flying unit, an aerial unit in this battle fleet as well, and they all just need the Imperium trait. Nice and easy in terms of force selection. Slightly more complicated is the Prussian support battle fleet. This is one of those themed ones. Now if we go over this, it needs one flagship, indicated by the flag, and they must be either of the Tempelhof class, the Stark Imperium class, or the Ice Maiden class, so you can't just select anything in this one. You also have to include one surface unit, and you can take up to two extra, which is also a difference compared to the Imperium faction fleet. Those surface units do need to have the Prussian trait, and if you wanted to field multiple Conrad or Sigmar class units in this fleet, you can, so the restriction of only one unit once gets overwritten for these two particular units. On top of that, as an option, you have an option to include one submerged unit and up to two aerial units, provided both of the submerged and aerial units have the Prussian trait. So if you want to build a force, there's a few steps that you have to make. First of all, you're going to agree to a points limit with your opponent. This is quite familiar for those with experience in wargaming. Starting games usually start off around 1,000 points, while more advanced games run up to 2,000 points as well. You spend the points as you go along. Now the first step is to select your battle fleet. And that battle fleet that I have selected here is the Prussian support battle fleet. The first choice I need to make is to select a flagship for this one. Now it mentioned it needs either a Tempelhof, which is the one that was shown here, a Stark Imperium, which is to the left of it, and then the big one, the Ice Maiden class, is also an option if you wanted to have a support fleet. The Ice Maiden is quite an expensive unit, so I'm going to select a Tempelhof as a baseline carrier for that one. The next step is to fill in all mandatory remaining slots. Those are indicated with must. You must include one surface unit. And if you're done with those mandatory ones, the flagship and the must surface unit, you can start using or filling up whatever you want to include in it as well. But I'm going to go for a very bare bones setup with this one. So for my first battle fleet that I've selected, I've included the Tempelhof carrier, which is 255 points baseline, but it can later be upgraded if you want to a Tempelhof Blitzen pattern upgrade. That would cost you a further 55 points. I'm not doing that yet. Usually that sort of stuff is best done at the very end of it, which I will showcase as well. To go with it, I've included a Conrad support carrier which costs me 135 points. The Conrad is a special unit because it can be attached to a flagship unit with the Prussian trait. The Tempelhof has both the Prussian trait and is a flagship, so these can actually be selected and act as one unit during gameplay as well. The two conditions are that the flagship has the correct traits, which it has, and the two units have to be within the same battle fleet, which they now are as well, so this is a good start for the force. Not including that Tempelhof Blitzen pattern upgrade, I have now spent 390 points of my 2000 point limit. This gives me some good SRS support to sit in the back line and launch aircraft, but I do lack some ships to push forward and engage with the enemy up close, so I think I'm going to go for a second battle fleet that is more geared towards going aggressive, which isn't exactly what you expect with the support battle fleet. Few battle fleets out there are as aggressive and forward-going as the Teutonic Order. These knightly order from the Imperium is very much specialized at that. So I select the Teutonic Advanced Battle Fleet. This one also must take a flagship. That can be a König class, a Maximilian class, which is something that hasn't been released yet, but you can sometimes find that in these Orbats, or an Ice Maiden class. I refrained from taking the big Ice Maiden the first time around because it's a very expensive unit to go in one go, so I'm taking the König class, which can be seen here in the center of this image. This one will set me back 260 points, and included in those 260 points I make a selection of a Shroud generator, a Magnetic generator and a Shield generator. Apart from what we see in this flagship, I also need to get some mandatory units. Well, it's just one, which is a surface unit, but that one needs to have the Teutonic trait. If I wanted to, I could spam Ferdinand classes and Teuton classes if I choose to do so. You don't have to. Now, the Teutonic trait for surface unit isn't found in a lot of different units. The options for them are sort of summed up here. You can take a Nachtsturm, which is a small anti-aircraft unit. The Teuton, which is a sort of destroyer unit that goes up with with small guns, but lots of them. The Volsung class is the heavier one, the Ferdinand class or the Arminius class. This last one is a special case because it is normally a Prussian ship, but it is also employed by the Teutonic Order, so it can swap its keyword should you so desire, so I'm listing it here as a potential option as well. Now, for me, it seems like a fun thing to have 6 Teutons in here. They are 45 points each, so this sets me back 270 points. The first Volsung costs 123 points, but each additional member is only 120, so a unit of 3, a squadron of 3, will set me back 363 points. On top of that, the battle fleet bonus for an advanced battle fleet from the Teutonic Order is that you can upgrade one surface unit in your battle fleet of mass 3 or less to have the unexpected arrival rule for 20 points. Now, by far the weakest unit of these are the Teutons, so I choose to upgrade the Teutons with an unexpected arrival. This unexpected arrival sets me back 20 points, but there's a good reason why I'm doing this. This is a generator ship, the König, and it can protect anything with mass 2 or above. These small mass 1 ships are quite fragile, though they do pack a lot of punch. It's quite easy for your opponent to shoot them down, so arriving unexpectedly somewhere on the battlefield is definitely something that is going to match up with their profile. In addition, just because I can and I like the model, I'm also selecting a Hochmeister for the submerged slot that they can have. This Teutonic Advanced Battle Fleet can have up to 2 submerged units, should they so desire, and that's that big stompy Jaeger-like monstrosity of a robot you see here in the back. It's just a very cool model. You'll want to include these sort of things, so why not use it in this tutorial? This battle fleet is definitely the meat and potatoes of the whole force, because it in total sets me back 1088 points. And you mustn't forget, I've already spent 390 points from my support fleet, so I don't really have that much to go still. But a good 500 points is more than enough to include something else, should I so desire, so I'm taking a bit of aerial support to go along with it. The force up to now has quite a bit of SRS options for long range, but it lacks any dedicated anti-air firepower and some long-range artillery-like pieces. And the Prussian aerial battle fleet is an ideal option for this. It is a very simple battle fleet in which you must take one single flagship, which must be either a Stark Imperium or a Zeppelin class. The Stark Imperium is another carrier, I've already got one of those, so I'm going to opt for the Zeppelin class, which is armed with a bunch of rockets, as you can see in the top picture here. That basically provides me with that long-range firepower that I'm looking for. You do also need to include another aerial unit with the Prussian trait, and you can spam Kriegssturm and Jäger classes should you so desire. However, I'm running a bit low on points, I've only got a good 500 or so of them left, so I'm just going to opt for a mandatory aerial unit with 4 Jäger aerial fast destroyers, setting me back 164 points, while my aerial dreadnought has set me back 275 points. This is not a bad time to start seeing how much the whole force has cost me so far, and this battle fleet ends up being 439 points. If we include the 1088 points from the Teutonic Order and the 390 from the support carriers, that means I'm down to 1917 points. That's not quite enough to flesh it out with another battle fleet, because you'll be hard pressed to find a flagship costing less than 80 points. And this is where you can start thinking about what can I do for those last 83 points, because even finding regular units that cost so little is starting to become difficult, and it might just be better to use a few upgrades elsewhere. I've already mentioned the option to take a Blitzern pattern upgrade for the Tempelhof. That would cost me 55 points, so I can definitely do that if I want to, and swap some of my SRS around for Blitzen bombers, giving me a bit more oomph when it comes to doing aerial attack runs. You could also include some escorts if you want to start protecting some of your flagships. Those escorts can only be Pflicht escorts for Zeppelins, but they only cost 5 points each, whereas if you wanted to protect your surface units, you would have to pay 8 points for an escort, or 10 if you wanted them to be Pflicht escorts as well. If you're wondering why that is, by the way, why it's cheaper for the Zeppelin, these escorts protect you typically against torpedo attacks and rocket attacks. And, well, those Zeppelins are already completely immune to torpedo attacks, so they only do half as much work, really, when you think about it, which is why they are only half the cost. Another funky upgrade option is to give the Teutons the veteran Voltmeisters, meaning even more experienced Teutonic Knights, for 3 points per model. Now I've got 6 Teutons, so I do have to pay 18 points for that whole upgrade. In addition, you can actually get a patron to pay for your fleet and to give the orders around. And a good option for this one in particular is Anna von Malberg, who is the Teutonic Grand Master, and that sounds ideal for a force that is made up for more than half of it of Teutonic Knights. It does not cost you any points, however it does award victory points, the thing you need to actually win the game, to your opponent at the start of the battle, so you do want to be wary of that. You're a bit behind already if you include this very powerful option. It is a very powerful option in this case though, because normally if you arrive from unexpected arrival, which I've already done with my battle fleet, you would have to use fire using crippled values. Anna von Malberg is quite experienced with these kinds of tricks, and so that doesn't exactly hurt you. She knows how to do this perfectly. There is no downside to using that unexpected arrival rule. On top of that, she also buffs veteran Voltmeister units by giving them even more dice when they are doing their assaults. Given how I have an unexpected arrival unit and quite a few units that can be upgraded with veteran Voltmeisters, I'm thinking about getting that one. So I ended up choosing the Blitzen upgrade, the Voltmeister upgrade for my Teutons, and then Anna, which left me with 10 points left for 2 Pflicht escorts for the Zeppelin. That actually comes down to a perfect 83 points and nicely fills out that 2000 points list. Now I was making this video and it came out perfectly. I'm quite chuffed about that. So it's not the end of the world if you've got a few, even 10 points left over at the end, but that's usually the case when you start looking for these sort of filler things, escorts and such. So there you have it, a perfect 2000 point list that you can have a lot of fun with, and you can still tweak to your heart's content, as if some of the things end up not being to your liking, etc., you still have a bit of leeway to change all of these things. The actual tutorial about how to select a force is over now, so if you were just interested in that part, you can stop the video. But I've also included a slide with, you know, sounds cool and all of that, but what is this exactly going to cost me if I build a force like this in this game? Say you have been eyeing up this game, you're interested in it, what do you need to get? I'm going to go for the worst case example for this force. A lot of these models are included in the Sturginium Skies 2-player starter set, which is something that will set you back £95, which is the full MSRP. Like, you can pick it up at Wayland Games. They are the guys who own the game company, and, well, the same company owns them, and they sell the game. I'm also just going to assume that you're not trying to go on the second-hand market and just keep the Crown faction. Imagine that you're the first player in your group who wants to give this game a go, and you haven't really found someone else to split it with. Worst case scenario. You would also need to get a König battle fleet set to get that flagship, which sets you back £45 in MSRP, and you would also need a Tempelhof battle fleet set, which sets you back another £45. If you want to include the big giant stompy robots, you can either get a Hochmeister battle fleet, which sets you back £45 MSRP, or, seeing as you're only using one, you can get the Beyond Sturginium Skies set for £55 and you'll be getting a whole lot more out of it. The grand total of all of this is £240, which is definitely not a low amount. I mean, I'm not going to pretend that it's for free, but I've also included a few pictures of all of the stuff you haven't been using yet. At the bottom right is some of the things you can find in this set for the Prussian side, if you decide to go for the Beyond Sturginium Skies box. You would still have one stompy robot left over that you can build as the second variant, the Metzger for instance, or if you want a bit more punch for your Hochmeister, you can use a second one of those. You still have two medium blimps that you can swap out as well, in case you wanted to try a different list. You would still have one of these frontline sprues. In this case, I've assembled my cruiser as a bombard version, so if you want some artillery pieces, you can do that. And the other support cruiser that you would have left over here, I have assembled as an anti-air version, which you would also have, and on top of that you would still get some neat little small things that you can, for instance, make that Nachtsturm version with that I mentioned earlier in the video, or if you wanted to try Sigimir versions, you absolutely can. In the background you see a bunch of scenery. That's not even all of it. There's still one of these large platforms that come in the Sturginium Skies box, the Beyond box rather, and so you even get terrain out of that to use during your gameplay as well. So you're not just getting a fully fledged tournament style ready 2000 point army, you're also getting a bunch of stuff that you can swap out. And last but not least, the other thing you're getting for this kind of money is just a plain old other army. This is what you would have gotten if you went this route for the Crown side. So even if you're the first player in your group who wants to pick this up, you would actually not just have a small army to play with the other side, you would have a second fully fledged 2000 point army, albeit with slightly fewer options than the Prussian side because we were focusing mostly on that one. In addition, you can also use these platforms as part of either of those two armies as well to fill out the points, so there is no stress about getting to another 2000 point game as well. And if you're completely new to the game and you're wondering just how much or what scale are these models, I've included this cheeky little skeleton hiding out in between the Crown to sort of show you just what kind of size models they are. This is a 2mm scale, also known as 1/1200th, which sounds very small, but these models are supposed to represent battleships that are several hundred feet long, so it's not exactly like you're getting some small little inky-dinky models out of them. You're getting quite a lot. I hope this last segment has helped. If you want to see more guides on how to start with this game and how to do a more cost-efficient way, because, you know, £240 is not nothing, then make sure you hit the thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for future updates, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye!